You're listening to another episode of Cap and Vince the Early Years. This was our second podcast during the text blogging days, originally posted on November 26th, 2008. Vince and I still weren't especially focused in our discussion, talking about everything from more movie trailers to the TV shows we were keeping up with at the time, especially Chuck, to our first foray together into the land of comic book collecting. Now remember, this podcast was recorded over 5 years ago, and the opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect mine or Vince's opinions today. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the second episode of Geek Speak the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince.
And today I thought we'd use our suave voices.
Suave voices?
Yes.
I don't have one of those.
You don't?
This is more my constipated voice.
Okay, in that case, we won't be using those voices today. So I thought maybe we'd start out talking about movies again. We were doing movies last time, and I think we have maybe a little more ground to cover on that. But then we should probably move on to other things so that we don't have to change the name of the podcast to Trailers, the podcast.
Trailers. Hey, that's a new movie coming up. Trailers, the podcast.
Trailers, the podcast. Well, let's take a look and see what the weekend box office looked like, shall we, Vince?
Why not?
Well, Twilight did 70,000, or 70. Too bad it didn't only do $70,000. No, Twilight did. Twilight actually maxed out at 70 million its opening weekend, which sort of baffled me until I thought about it. You know what Twilight is?
Yeah, the vampire movie.
It's
the
it's
the one with
it's
sparkles on their faces.
The teen chick angsty vampire book series, as far as I'm aware. I don't know much about it, but I know that it's mostly marketed to the teen girl crowd.
Oh yeah.
And so of course I really had no interest in seeing it. I didn't figure it would be very good. And so, but all my geeky friends have been like, "Did you go see Twilight?" I'm like, "No, and why would I?"
After watching some odd seasons worth of Angel, do you really want to go see angsty chick vampire movie?
Well, not Buffy more than Angel, considering it's high school.
That's true.
But anyway, Twilight, I again, at first I was surprised me at 70 million. That's a huge opening weekend. That's gigantic. And then I thought about it. What did it open against? Nothing. Take a look at the list. I mean, Quantum of Solace was last week. It did 26 this weekend, which isn't a terrible second weekend. And it did just fine last week. Apparently, I'm not sure what it opened at, but it opened at a lot more than the previous Bond film did.
I'm tempted to think that Bond is a little out of its element in modern day. It's a little bit more time isolated, I think.
Maybe, but again, since it's a reboot and since it's now a series, as opposed to just being like an independent movie every time. Not independent, that's a bad word. You know what I mean? Like, instead of being a standalone picture every time, it's now an ongoing series, so Bond remembers everything that happened in the last one. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like Batman Begins and Dark Knight in that fashion. It can, besides just being a reboot, it continues on its story. Bond gets to a place at the end of Casino Royale, and he starts there in Quantum of Solace.
That's different.
And so it's doing well. But I was thinking about this the other day, and I was trying to figure out why Twilight did so well, and I thought of a couple of reasons. Number one, again, it opened against nothing. There was nothing there was nothing else for anybody to go see. And even movies that are already out right now, what they have, Bolt and Madagascar 2. Ooh.
Well, Bolt is Pixar, though, isn't it?
No, don't say that. Blasphemy. Oof, blasphemy. No, Bolt.
My apologies.
Bolt is, I'm not it's Disney, but it's not Pixar.
Oh, okay.
Disney makes its own computer animated films now. Remember, they did Chicken Little. That wasn't Pixar.
Oh.
Bolt is not Pixar. Yeah.
Chicken Little. That was fantastic. A little bit of chicken goes a long way in a meal, anyway.
Pixar only does, because they're doing such high-quality computer animation, unlike DreamWorks, they only do one a year. Mm-hmm. So they're always summer blockbusters because they're always huge. So last year they had WALL-E. This year, but this last summer they have WALL-E, and then I think this year it's something called Up. That's what I heard the other day. I don't know anything about it. Unusually for Pixar, they didn't actually have the name, or they didn't even have a little trailer for their new movie on WALL-E like they usually do. So I was kind of surprised. So I don't know what it is exactly. I know Toy Story 3 comes out in 2010 or 2011.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that. I know nothing about it. I just heard about it.
The other reason I think Twilight is doing so well is because, and I just came up with this yesterday, but Okay, Harry Potter 6 was supposed to come out this November. And or December, I can't remember, but it was supposed to be a fall release, and they did the same thing that Paramount did with Star Trek. They kicked it back to the summer because they figured it would be a better summer blockbuster. They figured they could make more money with it that way, so they moved it back. Well, that's a similar crowd. Mm-hmm. You know, you're talking young adult book series.
True. Also, keep in mind that if it's marketed to mainly young women, it's going to fall into the category of the Titanic. Just making oodles of money on people that go see it more than once because they like that sort of thing.
Yeah, and not only that, but you're also talking about probably date picture.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's a vampire flick, if you've got a whole lot of teen girls and young women that like it, they're gonna get their boyfriends and their husbands to take them. And
plus geek stuff's kind of normalizing now in society, so therefore the vampires
which makes me happy.
It makes us all happy.
Did you read my old blog about Hot Topic and how it makes it fashionable to be a geek?
I don't know, but Hot Topic is just this side of evil anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, you can go into Hot Topic, and because you got it there, you can wear around a Power Ranger t-shirt now, and no one will punch you in the face. That wasn't true in 1992.
That's a good point.
So, anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about with movies. Any other upcoming films that we missed last week that we wanted to talk about?
Nothing that looks worth mentioning.
Really. Well, I know this stuff on here, but I'm talking about stuff that's not out yet.
I suppose we could talk about the second Watchmen trailer.
Well, now that you've seen it,
yeah.
Finally. Well, we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
So we're probably good. Do you remember? I was telling you a little bit about 24, and we were laughing a little bit at the idea of a 2-hour 24 movie in real time. Guess what? I did it. I watched it this weekend. They did it. It was a TV movie. It wasn't in theaters, but they did it. It was a 2-hour movie, and it was in real time. It was in 2 hours, beginning, middle, and end. 2 hours. It was called 24 Redemption, and then it was supposed to bridge the gap between last season, which was like 2 years ago, and the season that begins in January. And it was pretty good. It was all right.
It was that two interesting hours after he finished eating breakfast. Right?
It wasn't all coffee drinking. Well, he was in Africa, and that helped, I guess, a little bit. But anyway, it was about a terrorist group in Africa that was building up an army of little kids to try to overthrow their government. It was really kind of creepy, but
that's almost hilarious.
Well, almost, except that apparently it's actually happening.
Oh.
And so it's not as funny when you know that.
No, that's not quite as funny. It's like watching a movie where a guy dies and finding out the stuntman actually splatted against the cement.
Tony Todd was the bad guy?
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's in everything apparently. They killed him off in Chuck, and so now apparently he gets to be in 24 and be evil. But anyway, he not only was in that TV movie, but they introduced some new characters in that TV movie that are going to be in the season, and Tony Todd apparently is going to be all over it. So that's
interesting.
It's pretty cool, yeah. But anyway, it was pretty good. There's a female president now. And they've done a black president. Now they have a female president, and she's a lot like Janeway, only like 20 years older.
They're breaking down barriers, at least in a fictional world.
Yeah, right. Well, because in 24 they had a black president 7 years before we did. So anyway, yeah. Well, enough about. Oh, the other thing I was going to say about that though is that part of the reason they made that movie, besides just bridging the gap, is they wanted to gauge ratings to see how well a Jack Bauer movie would do in theaters. That was the idea, and they still want to make one. I'm not sure they needed to do that. I don't know why they're worried about people not going to see that movie.
Me neither.
I think everybody will go.
If you watch the series, you'll probably go see the movie.
Well, plus you'll have a lot of people who just like going to see stuff blow up, right?
Yeah.
And they'll go see it.
Scooby-Doo came out, and loads of people went to see that, didn't they?
Yeah, but I want to say for an entirely different reason.
Exactly. Well, I suppose there's a couple of people sitting around smoking pot in a van that want to go see Scooby-Doo! There's a talking dog. I've derailed, and I apologize.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's okay. So, what other things might we talk about? Well, what have you been thinking about Chuck this season, Vince?
I think it's enjoyable. It's a little on the strange side. It doesn't seem to be very... we were talking about this the other day, and I think you're ultimately right, that the Buy More really has nothing to do with the major plots going on.
At least it hadn't until just a couple episodes ago. They're getting
That's
better.
true.
They're getting better about it.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they did Chuck versus Tom Sawyer, that started getting better.
That was wonderful. Chuck versus the song Tom Sawyer, not the character Tom. Chuck fighting a little boy. That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, basically they had they had Chuck having to play Missile Command to save the world, and he had to do it at the Buy More, and so they kind of gave Jeff his own episode, a character that we'd never really known anything about or cared about, and he still kind of freaks me out. But the episode was cool, and there was just a whole lot of subplots that all came together. There were like 4 big subplots that were all interconnecting there, and the rest of the season it hasn't been like that. There's been a whole lot of stuff at the Buy More, and then the spy stuff. And the stuff at the Buy More has been way too sitcom-y for me.
And a lot of it doesn't even make sense. Like the episode where the people at the Buy More have to learn basic medical maneuvers.
Well, that was just last week, yeah.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's like, how difficult is CPR, and yet a couple of them went and tried to steal the test.
And they're cheating on the test. I mean, it's press, blow, press, you're done. I mean, come on. It's more complicated than that, but still.
Yeah. I too thought that was strange. You know what else I've been wondering, and this goes all the way back to first season, I mean, through the entire show, but why do so many people have access to that store after hours?
Anybody with a baseball bat can get in.
Like, they all have keys, and they make a big deal a lot about the cameras watching the store, and yet they hang out after hours and they never get fired. I don't understand.
That's a good point.
I know that you're generally, Vince, not a big fan of melodrama and soap opera-esque stuff, and neither am I. And I wanted to know what you've been thinking about the vicious love triangles this season, because there've been a couple, and they kind of are not letting off on them.
I'm starting to find them tiresome. I'm getting irritated. I mean, even with the introduction of this character, who's somewhat interesting, the ex-girlfriend of Chuck, who is brought back into his life.
Who we all assumed would come back at some point.
Yeah, but I still find it grating. It's just I don't want to experience it in the way that it's going on, because you know exactly where it went, and it has gone there.
And it's gone there,
yeah. Where it's going to go.
Yeah, that she's a member of Fulcrum, and she's evil, and then they played her up to not be that way. And the thing is, they treated the ending of that as this giant reveal when they were showing all the pictures of the people that are in Fulcrum, and then and so obviously they're showing all these pictures, and we know that we're going to get to somebody we know. Mm-hmm. And who else could it possibly be?
Jeff. It's going to be
Jeff. Jeff is a member of Fulcrum. I think it would have been cool if we thought it was Jill, and then suddenly it was like Big Mike or
Big
Jeff
Mike.
or.
Oh, Big Mike would have been hilarious.
Or Captain Awesome.
Captain Awesome.
Captain Awesome is Fulcrum. See, that wouldn't even make sense. We just would never watch it again because we wouldn't buy it.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think anybody listening to this podcast has ever watched that show?
There may be one person out there.
One
person in Hoboken, New Jersey.
I think my good friend... oh, is this just going to become the Bash on Hoboken, New Jersey show?
I want to be lynched by an entire state. How dare you make fun of our Hoboken?
My good friend John Benda is is becoming a Chuck fan. He's been watching it, and John Benda reminds me a lot of Chuck. I don't know if you've ever met John.
I don't know John Benda. Unless I do know cool. John Benda, then I'm sorry, John.
He's probably listening to this. He said he was going to start listening to our podcast, and he's one person.
We got
who watches Chuck. By the way, we apparently have at least 12 listeners, including us.
Woo!
Yeah, including you and I, we have at least 12 listeners.
That's a goal. That's a record right
there.
Yeah,
that's pretty fantastic. I'm thinking after last show, we should probably stop listening to our own podcast so we don't keep messing up the Is it geekier that we do the show, or is it geekier that we listen to it?
I'd say that it's listening. It has to be listening. Listen to it 6 times. I did. I'm sorry. I listened to it. 6 of those 12 were me.
A couple of weeks ago, Vince and I went to a comic convention.
Yeah.
In Kansas City at some hotel. You remember what hotel that was?
No.
Okay, well, obviously, I did my research on this. I don't remember what the hotel was, but
For some reason, I'm thinking Wyndham Garden, but think I heard that in a movie.
no, I don't think it was. I don't think it was that. But anyway, so we went there, and it was a pretty big show actually. There were what 8, 10, 12 vendors. It was pretty big.
It was a pretty decent sized show for something that was held in one room. They crammed a whole group of people in there, and nobody had anything but issue 1 of Old Man Logan.
oh, that's all they had. They just
That's
brought.
right.
What are you talking about?
Old Man Logan. It's the story arc in Wolverine that's going on right now.
Oh.
Where they throw him into the future.
Wolverine got old?
Yeah. Wolverine is old. Wolverine has a wife and kids.
I didn't know that.
And Wolverine is trying to save his farm, I think, from the Hulk kids, who are basically these freakish green Hulk hicks. It's ridiculous. So Wolverine and an old Hawkeye go on a road trip to get to the other side of a divided United States. And I've only read the first issue. That's exactly what happens in the first issue.
Wow.
And it's absolutely insane. And I was trying to collect the rest of it so I could do a blog on it, but I can't find issue 68. And every time I go up to one of the vendors, they said, "Oh, we have number 1." I said, "I don't need number 1. I need the 3rd one in the series."
That's ridiculous.
I don't understand why 3 is so hard to find, but 1 is really easy. Just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I didn't get very much when I was. I saw a lot of stuff I wanted, but I decided not to spend a lot of money on comics right now because I did that giant comic binge last year, and so anyway, I usually buy comics in bulk. I bought out somebody's entire garage once. It was like 3,000 comics. That's how I got all my Spawn. I got like 1 through 96 consecutively, and
That's a lot of comics.
yeah, I doubled my collection with it, and I got a lot of my good Spider-Man that way. I got all my X-Men that way. I had no X-Men before I did that, believe it or not. I had like 3 issues of X-Men.
Yeah, same here.
And then this last year, there was a guy who used to go to my church who decided he was going to finally sell his collection that he'd been collecting since like 1978. This would be his second collection. He actually sold all the really good stuff he had from Silver Age, and a long time ago in like '82, when that stuff was. and anyway, so then he decided he wanted to move to St. Louis and go to the seminary, and he wanted me to buy his comics from him, and I didn't have the money to buy them, but I told him that if I could keep a certain percentage of the comics, I'd sell them on eBay for him. So I did that, and he let me keep about 25% of the books.
I actually bought some of those from you.
Yeah, that's right. Vince bought some of those, and
Group of Punisher comics,
so
of course.
I got the whole Frank Miller run of Daredevil, and I got
You lucky.
I know, and I got a lot of earlier Spider-Man that way, Amazing Spider-Man that way, and lots of other cool stuff. Some of the Infinity Gauntlet. That's one of the things I was looking for at the convention was Infinity Gauntlet. If anybody has Infinity Gauntlet, the whole thing, give me a call, or give me an email. Send me a line. I'd really like to get that. I'm looking for it.
I think I know a man who does have the whole line.
Oh, cool. And he's probably not listening to the show right now.
No, he's not.
That's my guess, yeah. Well, anyway, so there's the convention. That was fun. You got some posters.
Oh, yeah. Punisher posters, and then I saw the trailer.
Yeah, see, there wasn't anything there I want. I watched that trailer the other day. That movie does not look like my kind of movie. I didn't like the first one, and I don't think I would like this one either. Way too many exploding heads, I think. Way too many giant pieces of things going through people's faces.
Well, that's kind of what the Punisher is. A whole bunch of death just falling right on top of a bunch of bad dudes.
Yeah, well, good luck with them reinvigorating that franchise. Yeah. I'm excited for them.
See,
whatever.
The Punisher franchise could be the most action-packed, fun movie to come out,
Yeah, but it's actually just kind of painful.
Yeah.
People's fingers getting stapled and crap like that.
It seems to be that they're trying to add too much drama in the first 2 that came out, and in this one they're just trying to add too much action.
Or violence.
Yeah, just horrible violence.
I'm not saying I've got a problem with violence in and of itself, but I just don't like watching a movie for the sake of violence.
It'd be nice if there was something more,
Yeah, I was looking at at a blog once a few years ago, talking as people have been talking for the last decade about Todd McFarlane finally making another Spawn movie, and when it looked like he was probably going to get another one made in like 03 or 04 or something, I read some blog where somebody was talking about it, and then one of the comments was, "I hope it's a whole lot more brutal than the last one." I'm like, where are your priorities, pal? Yeah, but that's not the point, you know? I just don't understand where a person's priorities are. What about I hope there's a deeper, more interesting, more meaningful plot, or I hope it doesn't feel so formulaic and cookie cutter like the last one did.
But we like cookies.
Yeah. I like cookies, Vince, but I don't like cookies in my Spawn.
Cookies and Spawn, the new treat from Nabisco.
Ding. Yeah. Did you ever watch the Spawn movie? It wasn't very good.
Yeah, I saw it back in the day.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it when I was younger, but now I have no real opinion of it.
It's not good, but the animated series is fantastic. I don't know if you ever watched
I haven't seen more than about 10 minutes of that. From what I saw, I knew I was interested.
It's pretty good. The art is somewhat similar to animated Batman, to the Bruce Timm stuff, and I liked that about it. And the voiceover's really good. Have you seen the what was it? The big comic book documentary that they did a couple years ago? No, a few years ago now, back in like 03 or 04. There was like an hour and a half documentary that History Channel did. And you should see it.
Oh.
It's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember what it's called exactly now, but it just kind of went all over the place and covered everything it could in like an hour.
That was really pretty fascinating from what I saw of it.
The narrator is the guy who played Spawn in the animated series.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
That's the only reason I mentioned it. But it's kind of cool. Some of the things they cover, they actually go into like some of the second tier stuff, like Green Arrow and.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I'm getting to where I really like Green Arrow.
The only thing I've actually read of Green Arrow is apparently one of his the big what to do issues or story arcs that came out for him, which was Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters.
Yeah, you told me about that.
And,
Never read it.
It was interesting. It wasn't my cup of tea. I guess maybe I just didn't know enough about Green Arrow to be that intrigued by the storyline.
I need to read some. The thing that's getting me interested in Green Arrow, believe it or not, is Smallville, because he's been on since season 6 on and off, and he's been really good. It's a pretty good representation of him, and it was kind of nice to see somebody in that universe wearing a costume.
It was kind of nice to see somebody in that universe not sucking.
Well, yeah, okay, fine. But anyway, there's a whole lot of talk about, and now they're not going to make the terrible Grayson show, and thank God. There's a whole lot of talk about what they're going to replace it with, and I really wish they'd just spin off Green Arrow, Justin Hartley, and give him his own show, because he was supposed. See, Justin Hartley was playing Aquaman in the Aquaman show,
right.
and they did that pilot, and then it didn't go to show. But
I never saw the pilot. Did you see the pilot?
I haven't seen it. I've seen trailers for it. It looked really good. I haven't watched the pilot.
I think they sell it on iTunes.
They do. That's why I haven't watched it. I didn't want to pay for it, but I will at some point. Actually, that's not.
Yay for
that's
being
not
cheap.
True. That's not true. I've gone on to pay for things on iTunes before, and for some reason, I haven't been able to get them to play on various computers I've had. So
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is, but I'll figure it out. On the season 6 box set for Smallville, there's this really cool Green Arrow documentary, and I mean, as bad as Smallville has been, there's this documentary. It's almost worth the set, and they talk about Green Arrow's various arrows, and how in various points he's had some really dumb arrows. One of which was the boxing glove arrow.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And that got real famous for being just really hokey, right? And there's a line in one of the early Smallville episodes of season 6 where Green Arrow is talking to Clark and he's talking about his arrows, and he's like, "Yeah, I was gonna make a boxing glove arrow," and then Clark just kind of like raises his eyebrows and looks at him like, "You're dumb," and then Green Arrow's kind of like, "Yeah, that wasn't such a great idea."
Wink, wink to all the fans watching.
Yeah. Anyway, that was sort of cool because they hadn't done neat wink, wink, nod, nod since they exhausted all of their cool wink, wink, nod, nods in the first couple of seasons of Smallville about, because after a while you just run out of good Superman jokes.
True.
Like first season you'd get some really cool lines, or what I thought back in 2001 when I was a junior in high school, I thought were cool lines. Where you'd have things where somebody asked Clark what he wanted to do, like Chloe or Lana asked Clark what he wanted to do when he grew up, and he said, I don't know, but I don't know, but whatever it is, I just hope that it doesn't include putting on a suit and doing a lot of flying. And I liked that, so.
That's pretty clever, though.
So they had some pretty clever lines like that, and they did other things there was an episode where Lex was talking to somebody. I can't remember what the context was, but he was like, "Yeah, someday I'd like to be president." They do some cool stuff like that. So anyway, shameless promotion time. Apparently,
shameless promotion. This year, 2008. A book came out called The 10-Cent Plague, The Great Comic Book Scare and How It Changed America by David Hajdu. H-is not a word. H-A-J-D-U, just in case you want to look it up. $26. It's only hardcover right now, but it is completely worth it. It has nice little anecdotes from people's lives, and it has a general history about everything going on. It's really very interesting. I wish Jay would have read it so that we could discuss it.
You know what? Yeah, I'll take a look at it over break here. Maybe I'll try to read some of it. Thank you. Maybe I'll try to read some of it this weekend or in the next couple weeks, and then we could.
There is also an audiobook out by I think it's Blackstone Audio.
We could do a bit of a review on it.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be pretty cool. Well, Vince, why don't we? Unless you had anything else you wanted to talk about right now?
Not in particular.
Okay, let's go into our 2-minute rants for the week. Would you like to start, or would you like me to start this
I have
week?
nothing to rant about right now.
Well, I'll do mine, and then you can think of something.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Go for it.
I'm not sure this will take 2 minutes. No pressure. Okay, so my 2-minute rant for the week, I suppose, let's see. Okay, yeah, I guess this week I'm going to talk about, cable channels that no longer can keep their themes. Because, and this has been going on since the days of MTV, of course, but I'm getting a little bit sick of it. There's things like, Cartoon Network doing live-action programming. It's called Cartoon Network, but it has live-action programming. And not only are they showing live-action movies now, but they're also making their own live-action programming. And the cartoons are all really terrible, and I don't think good very often for children to be watching lots of barfing and things going on in these cartoons now. And then they're doing these live-action shows. I think it's deplorable, personally. And then the other day, Sarah, my wife, was watching Turner Classic Movies. My wife was watching television, which is pretty amazing in and of itself. But it was, but she was watching Turner Classic Movies, and she was watching some westerns, and they were old westerns, so they fit in with the Turner Classic Movies theme, right? And then I walked in, and it was a commercial, and there was a TMC commercial that was showing clips from various movies, most of which weren't classic at all. There was a clip from Star Trek Nemesis. That came out in 2002 and is neither classic nor very good. And so I thought that was very odd. Now I think TMC has been doing this for several years now, but it still kind of surprises me. It's kind of like Disney and how they can put classic on anything they've ever made. Have you ever noticed that? Like, especially back in the VHS days. I don't know if they do this with DVDs anymore, but they used to have this steel at the top that was like Disney Classics, and it would be a movie that was made 2 years ago, but it's a Disney classic. Anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is people shouldn't call things classic that aren't, classic. And TV networks if they have a theme, they should stay themed. For instance, Game Show Network, still showing game shows. Still only showing game shows. That's my 2-minute rant for the week.
And why doesn't Spike TV show pictures of railroad spikes? I want to know. Thank you. Alrighty. Sticking with that classic theme, I think I'm going to have to rant about a movie coming out eventually whenever they get around to finally completing it. I'm not sure exactly as to when. This movie is the Green Hornet movie.
Oh, God, that's been in the can for eons.
Yeah, and if I'm correct, then the people that are still making it are Seth Rogen and Stephen Chow. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but a chubby, curly-haired... Britt Reed, I think is the Green Hornet's name, really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't really want to see the Green Hornet throw on a mask, stick in a doobie, and jump in his car and toke around for a while. It doesn't seem like all that much fun fighting crime with bong-related paraphernalia. But Green Hornet fans have been looking forward to an actual serious Green Hornet movie for a long time, and then they just hand it over to Seth Rogen and say, here, make some crap for us. Now, Seth Rogen hasn't had an entirely bad career. I actually enjoy some of his movies, but I do not think the action genre is one that he should take a little trip into. The reason being is that, alright, I had a friend that tried to convince me that the Green Hornet is a serious crime television show. So, now I love my friend, he's a good guy, but when I sat down to watch this, it was very serious. It was very mafia. Some guy's taken into a room, he's about to be murdered. And I figured there was going to be some sort of a sniper shot, but instead a ninja swings down from the roof and hits him in the throat with the end of a rope. There's no weapon on the end of a rope, it's just the end of a rope. And it kills the dude instantly. That was interesting, but not very serious. Now, I would like to see something serious, something finally serious, Britt Reed, Green Hornet, but no. They're not going to do it. They're going to make some sort of comedy, which I suppose is okay if they can make a comedic James Bond movie like they did in the 60s with the original Casino Royale, then they can make a comedic Green Hornet movie. But that's not what most people want as far as I know. I'm done.
Okay, well, hey, I think that's all the time we have. We're a little bit over time this week, fans.
I think some of this could be edited out. Anyway.
Maybe next week we'll do like 25 minutes.
25.
You think we can make it?
Maybe 24.
24.
24.
We should do a 24-minute show and not talk about 24.
We'll just have a big poster of Jack Bauer in the background that none of you guys can see.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm Captain Logan. This is Vince.
Yep.
Signing off.